Yervin from the Tulsa Zoo. Thank you for joining me today. Today, we have an exciting topic for you. We are going to discuss reptiles. But what is a reptile? Reptiles are those animals like turtles and tortoises, snakes and lizards, crocodilian, which includes alligators and crocodiles, and of course tuataras. But we're not going to really focus on them because there's only one of them left in the world. But what makes a reptile reptile? How do we know which animals are reptiles and which ones aren't? Well, all reptiles share different characteristics or traits. Firstly, all reptiles have backbones or vertebrae. They are vertebrate animals. Secondly, all reptiles have lungs. They breathe air. They all have scales covering their bodies. Reptiles are ectothermic, or another word for that is cold-blooded. And reptiles produce eggs for their young. So what do all these traits mean? Let's go ahead and dive in and examine them a little more closely. This right here is a vertebrae from an Aldabra tortoise. Like I said, all reptiles have vertebrae or backbones. You can even feel your own back and feel those bones in there. Of course, we're not reptiles, but all reptiles have them. All reptiles are vertebrate animals. These vertebrae help keep their skeleton's structure strong and upright. All reptiles have lungs and breathe air. So even if you're a sea turtle and you're living in the middle of the ocean, you still need to breathe air. So you still have to surface up to the top of the ocean and take a breath. Even if you're an alligator that loves to lay in the mud at the bottom of a pond, you still have to come up to the surface to breathe air because you have lungs. All reptiles have scales. These scales cover their bodies and protect them while keeping their moisture inside their bodies. These scales are made up of keratin, which is the same stuff that makes up your fingernails. So you might know that reptiles are cold-blooded animals, but saying it's cold-blooded is a little bit confusing because reptiles don't always have cold blood. What that means is that they are ectothermic. That's the more scientific word for being cold-blooded. And what that means is they don't produce their own body temperature. They don't produce their own heat. They don't have a furnace like mammals and birds do. They have to get their heat from the sun or other outside sources. So let's go ahead and explore this a little bit further with an experiment that you can do at home.
Hey there, it's Trisha. I want to show you a little bit about what it means to be an ectotherm. So here I have a model example. So as you can see, we have a lamp, we have some snakes, and 2 thermometers. So in a day, these snakes are going to go to different places depending on what they need. So imagine it's a really, really chilly day. Where do you think an ectotherm might try to go? Here we have our lamp. This is going to model the sun. And here we have another thermometer over to the side, and this is going to model our shaded area. So if it's a little bit colder, which area do you think our snakes might go to? So they're going to go towards the sunny area because they need to be able to warm up. So our snakes are going to gravitate over here. As you can see on our thermometer, it is about 85 degrees Fahrenheit versus in our shaded area, which is a little bit colder. It is about 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is a little bit about what it means to be an ectotherm.
All reptile species produce eggs. Sometimes those eggs are soft and leathery, while other times they are hard, like this one. Now, not all reptiles lay eggs. Sometimes they actually keep those eggs inside their bodies until they hatch within and then emerge as live babies. Now that we've learned the characteristics that all reptiles share, let's learn about the specific groups of reptiles, starting with turtles and tortoises. Now, turtles and tortoises are easily identified by their shells. All turtles and tortoises have them. They have these shells, which are part of their skeletons. Now remember, we learned that all reptiles are vertebrate animals or have backbones. Turtles are no different. Turtles have backbones too. If we check out the inside of this shell, you can see their backbone runs right down the middle of their shell. And the part that comes around and covers their body is actually modified ribs. Just like you have ribs, but their ribs make up their shell. Now this part of their shell is called the carapace, and the bottom part is called the plastron. And this helps protect the animal. Now turtles do have that reputation of being slow, and that's kind of something that they had to give up to have this shell. So this shell does weigh them down a little bit and does slow them down a little bit, but don't let that fool you. Turtles that swim are very fast, and even some land tortoises, they can be pretty scooty too. Now, turtles and tortoises do differ a little bit. Turtles can mostly be found in the water, while tortoises can mostly be found on land. That doesn't mean that tortoises couldn't go in the water, but that's just where you typically would find them. There are a little bit of a difference between turtles and tortoises when you look at them. Turtles tend to have flatter shells, while tortoises have these big dome-shaped shells. And that's really helpful on land. Say you're walking around and you get flipped over by mistake. If you were flat, it would be hard to rewrite yourself. But if you have this dome-shaped shell, you can start rocking back and forth and eventually get yourself upright. Another characteristic of turtles and tortoises are their beaks, okay? They do not have teeth at all. They do have these strong beaks that they use to bite off bits of their food. Turtles and tortoises also have these things. They are called scutes. And what they are, remember we talked about reptiles having scales, they're just modified scales that go on top of their shell. Now let's meet one of our turtle friends.
Hi there, it's Trisha again. Here I have a special friend to show you. This is Pokey. Pokey is a three-toed box turtle. Now Pokey has some special features that we mentioned before that turtles and tortoises possess. So here you have that shell. You can see that hardened shell on top that they use as protection. And they also have a couple other features as well. You can see their claws, and you also can see their beaks. So Pokey has a beak and does not have teeth. Now, they will use their beaks to eat a variety of different things, fruits, vegetables, and grasses, and even small invertebrates. So, as a three-toed box turtle, they get their special name because they are able to actually put their head inside and their legs and tail completely inside and close up almost like a hinge to be completely protected.
Now let's explore lizards. Lizards are a very diverse group of reptiles and vary greatly in size, from tiny little house geckos to extremely large Komodo dragons like this one here. Despite their size, lizards all share a few things in common. One thing is their tail. Lizards tend to have very long tails compared to their bodies. Sometimes those tails can be 2, even 3 times longer than their body length. Very long tails. Some lizards can even lose their tails. They do this as a defense mechanism. If they're scared or if they're threatened, they'll drop that tail. Hopefully, the rest of the lizard will be able to get away while the predator is distracted by that tail. Lizards also have external ears. So if you look close at a lizard's head, you'll see little holes in the side of their head, and those are their ears. Now, of course, they don't have big flappy things like we do, but they do have those holes in their ears, so they have ears just like us. Another thing they have are eyelids. Now, we're going to talk about this a little bit later with our next group of reptiles, but keep that in mind. Lizards can blink. They do have eyelids. Now let's meet a really cool lizard friend.
Hi there. Next up, we have lizards. Here in front of me, I have a bearded dragon. This bearded dragon is a lizard that can be found in Australia. So some of the features we talked about having to do with lizards are their tail. So if you take a look here, this is Razzle. Razzle's tail is very, very long. Now their tail is about twice the size of their body. Once we take a closer look, you can also see their eyes. If you look closely, they might blink at you because remember, lizards have eyelids. And they also have those ears. On the sides, you might be able to see those holes there. Those are their ears. Now, bearded dragons specifically, you might notice those spikes on the side. Now, they might come across as scary or threatening, and that is exactly what they are hoping to do with those spikes. Now, those spikes are actually kind of mushy and they're not very spiky, but they can be used to ward off predators if they get close enough. Bearded dragons also get their name from what happens when they feel threatened. So when they feel threatened, they might puff up, and underneath, right where a beard might be, they actually will puff up and it will become black and look almost like a beard. Here you can see. Hi everyone, I have a fun experiment today that you all can actually do at home as well. So this experiment involves capillary action. Have you ever heard of that before? So there is an animal that actually uses capillary action in order to stay hydrated, and that animal is the thorny devil. So this lizard lives in parts of Australia that are very, very dry and they don't have a lot of water. So in order for this lizard to stay hydrated, they have specialized scales that they are able to use that will actually uptake water and are able to keep them hydrated. And they are able to do this through a process called capillary action. So I have a very simple experiment here today that's going to show capillary action, and let's go ahead and go over these materials and we can give it a try. So the materials that you are going to use, and you can use whatever you have available at home: cups, water, a paper towel or a napkin, and if you have it, some food coloring. So what you are going to do to prepare for this experiment is you're going to take your paper towel or napkin, open it up, and you will start to twist it the long ways. So you'll crumple it up and twist it, kind of like this. Once you have that twisted, you're going to prepare your cup with water. So I'm going to put a few drops of food coloring in for fun. And then I'm going to pour my water. You're going to want to pour your water almost full, but not quite. So once you do that, you are ready to try the experiment. Now, before I begin, I want you to think about at home what you think is going to happen. How fast do you think this is going to absorb? Or do you think it'll absorb it all? Let's take a look. When you're doing it at home, I want you to think about that as well. What do you think is going to happen? So let's give it a try. You're going to put one end of the paper towel in this cup and rest the other one in here. And it might be hard to see. So as you can see, the paper towel is starting to absorb the water on this end, and it is slowly making its way toward the other side of the paper towel. And again, this is an example of capillary action, and this is how the thorny devil is able to stay hydrated in the hot areas that it is native to. All right, thanks so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this experiment.
Next, we're going to talk about snakes. Now, snakes often get a bad reputation for being aggressive or trying to bite you all the time. However, that's just not true. Snakes are really important to the ecosystem. They eat lots of rodents and other pests that people do not like to have around. So they control those numbers and keep them away from where people live. Now remember, we learned that all reptiles are vertebrates. We learned that the turtles, their shell is part of their backbone, and you might not think about it, but snakes have vertebrae too, or backbones. Their backbone is made up of hundreds of tiny little bones and ribs. So even though they're very bendy and flexible, they have tons of little bones in their body that make up their backbone. Snakes also often shed their skin. You hear that about how they can shed their skin. Now, all the other reptiles, they shed their skin too, but snakes, they shed theirs in a little bit different way than all of the others. They shed all in one piece. So when they're ready to shed their skin, they kind of rub their nose along something hard to get it started, and then kind of just slither out of their skin and leave their old skin behind. This is an example of that. So all in one piece. Okay? Now underneath that old skin is new, brand new, fresh, bright, ready to go skin. And they always look bright and shiny right after they shed. Now snakes, remember I told you we were going to get back to this. Snakes do not have eyelids. They cannot blink. So if you're ever in a staring contest with a snake, the snake will win every single time because they cannot blink. When we look at a snake, we think, hey, that's an animal that is all tail. They have such a long tail, right? But actually, snakes have really long bodies and little tiny short tails. So that's a difference between lizards and snakes. Remember, lizards have really long tails, and snakes have pretty short tails compared to their bodies. Also, if you look at their head, remember, our ears are here. Lizards have ears as well. Snakes do not have external ears and don't hear like other animals that do. Now you see snakes sticking out their tongue a lot. And that's a really great adaptation for them, or how they smell or taste the air. They use that to sense their environment and figure out what's going on. Let's go ahead and meet one of our snake friends.
Hey, Trisha here again. Let's talk about snakes. So here I have with me a ball python. Her name is Pearl. So a couple of things about our snake friend. She does have a vertebrae. So all snakes are going to have those vertebrae here. And so even though she's rolled up in that circle, she is still going to have those vertebrae all inside her. Snakes also have a very short tail. So if I can kind of unwind her here, you might be able to see she has quite a short tail. As mentioned before, she also does not have eyelids, so she's not going to be able to blink, and she doesn't have ears like us. And so in order for Pearl to be able to hear things, she almost hears through vibrations. So picture yourself being in a car and you're stopped at a red light, and you may feel the car beside you because their music is so loud, that bass going off. So it's going to be similar to that, is the way that she is able to hear things. A couple of other things is you may see her tongue flitting about. So that's actually the way that she is able to smell, is through putting her tongue out like that. She's able to sense that smell. So ball pythons in particular, they are the second smallest species of python, and they are found in different parts of Africa. So ball pythons actually get their name by what happens when they're threatened. So when ball pythons are feeling threatened, they will actually roll into a ball and go into that formation. So the way that Pearl is actually able to eat is through constriction. So Pearl is a constrictor, and when she finds food that might be yummy to eat, what she'll do is she will take her prey and she will constrict it with her body. And then once she has constricted it and it can no longer breathe, that is when she will be able to consume it. So once she is actually able to eat her prey, she can open her jaw. So her jaw, her bones are in 3 separate pieces and it's able to stretch. And so with that, we're not able to, but it would be equivalent to us being able to eat something the size of a watermelon, which is pretty incredible. All right, thanks everyone. Let's go and head on back to Katie.
Our last group of reptiles are crocodilian. Now, the group crocodilian includes alligators, crocodiles, caiman, and gharials. And they're all those things that look like alligators, those big animals that look like alligators. They kind of look like lizards, but they are separated into a different group. Now, alligators and crocodiles are a really interesting group of reptiles. They've been around for a very long time. They've been around since the dinosaurs were around. And the dinosaurs and reptiles are actually separate groups. Way back, they used to think that they were the same group, but they've actually separated dinosaurs out into their own group and aren't considered reptiles anymore. But alligators and crocodiles did live back at the same time that dinosaurs existed. And guess what? Some crocodiles actually ate dinosaurs. It's amazing. These big, large crocodiles that lived during dinosaurs' age would eat these dinosaurs. Now, alligators and crocodiles have a unique adaptation. It's almost like a turtle shell, but it's a little bit different. Underneath their scales, they have these special bones called osteoderms. And osteoderm, if you break down the word, means bone skin. So they have these free-floating bones underneath the skin that acts like armor or protection from predators. Now, these guys love to just chill out in the water. They don't expend a lot of energy. Some people might say that they're lazy, but I like to say they like to conserve energy. So they're just going to chill out in the water, minding their business. Now, these guys are ambush predators, which means they're just going to sit and wait, and wait, and wait. And if they see something yummy come by, that's when they're going to jump into action and go out, grab that item, often on land, pull it back into the water, and then eat it after it dies in the water. Now, alligators, there's actually only 2 species of alligators in the whole entire world. There's the American alligator, which of course you can find in the United States, and there's the Chinese alligator. The Chinese alligator is much smaller than the American alligator, but there's really only 2 different kinds of alligators in the whole world. The rest are mostly crocodiles. Now, when we think of a crocodile, think of it in your head. Crocodiles tend to have more of a V-shaped snout, okay? Where alligators, this is an alligator skull, alligators have a U-shaped snout, okay? Also, if you take your hands like this, make a fist, and go like this, this would be an alligator mouth. When alligators close their mouth, you can actually only see their top teeth. Now, if you want to make a crocodile mouth, go like this, and then interlace like this. This is a crocodile mouth. When a crocodile has their mouth closed, you can see almost all of their teeth. Now, this is a really interesting group of animals, and let's take a closer look at some that we have out in the zoo.
Hi everyone, we are here in the Lost Kingdom next to the Chinese alligator exhibit. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about these animals here, the Chinese alligator. So they are, believe it or not, found in China. Their habitats tend to be rivers, and they are actually critically endangered as well. So there's only about 200 of these animals left here in the wild, and it is due to habitat loss. So these alligators are actually quite small as well. They can only grow up to about 6 feet in length versus our American alligator, which can grow to about 10 to 12 feet. And so these are the only 2 types of alligators that you can find in the world, and we're lucky enough to have our Chinese alligator here for people to enjoy as well.
Now that we've learned what all the reptiles are and their characteristics, I have a mystery animal for you guys to enjoy. Let's take a look and see if we can figure out what this animal is. Alrighty, guys, this is our mystery animal. All right, so just looking at this animal, we see that it has scales. Okay, so good chance that it is a reptile. Now, another first glance, this doesn't have any legs. So it's got to be a snake, right? Well, our mystery animal, if we take a closer look, has ears. Has ears. It also can blink. It has eyelids. So remember we talked about snakes, and they don't have eyelids, so they can't blink, and they don't have external ears like this one does. Also, let's take a look. This guy's tail begins right here. So this is its body, and all of that is its tail. So remember, snakes have very short tails compared to their bodies. So what could this be? All right, some of you guessed it. This right here is a legless lizard. So this is a European legless lizard, also known as a Sheltopusik. These guys, of course, live in Europe, and they love to live in the underbrush of wooded areas. Now, this is a lizard, okay? Remember, it's a lizard because it has those ear holes, it can blink, and has this very long tail. Now, Sheltopusiks are pretty cool because they also sometimes are called glass lizards. And the reason they're called glass lizards is because sometimes when they're disturbed or when there's a predator around and they're scared and they want to get away, they will break like glass. And what that means is their tail will drop off and the rest of the lizard, the body of the lizard, can get away. The tail is left behind, wiggling and squiggling, so the predator is distracted, but the lizard gets to live another day. Eventually, the tail will grow back. It will never be as long, and it will never be as pretty, but it will grow back, and the lizard can live another day. Pretty cool, right? So as we learned, reptiles are fascinating creatures. And this group, remember, has turtles and tortoises, snakes and lizards, and crocodilian. And all of those reptiles share certain characteristics or traits. Remember, those traits are that they're vertebrate animals or have backbones. They all breathe air with their lungs. They have scales that cover their bodies. They are ectothermic, which means cold-blooded, and they also produce eggs for their young. You guys, it was a lot of fun having you with me today, and I hope you learned a lot about our reptile friends. If you want to learn more about reptiles, go ahead and hop on our website, tulsazoo.org, or maybe just come visit us, and you can see our collection here at the Tulsa Zoo. Thanks very much, guys.